Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Bluebaggers Edge and the first, official episode that is concentrating on all things off-season, post-season, and of course, no doubt, the changes that will be inbound, both off-field and on-field. And we are here with the first update, the first bit of news in terms of changes in the assistant coaching ranks, and that is that the club has parted ways with backline coach Aaron Hamill, as reported by Tom Morris. And early word is that he has actually opted out of his contract despite having a year remaining, having been at the club since the 2022 season. As I said, reportedly has come to an agreement with the club with, the messaging being, and this is the quote by Tom Morris, that he is pursuing other opportunities in and outside of footy. So I think he is doing a bit of work in the Shane Warne Foundation space. So it does make a bit of sense with regards to that. But given that he is still pursuing opportunities in footy, it makes me think, is it going to be, in a different role potentially? Is he no longer willing to potentially pursue anything assistant coaching related? If he does pop up at another club in an assistant coaching role, it probably speaks to a bit of more of the truth behind the matter, in that he's come to an agreement with the club that they just want to mutually part ways. But a bit of an interesting one, considering that he is under contract. Is, this just a way of smoothing things over from a club perspective about, the fact that they've had to pay him out and they don't want to speak about that. Who knows? But, it is quite interesting that it's occurred in this fashion. Because for me, Hamill was probably one coach who I thought might be kept on, given, the defensive performance by and large hasn't been the worst in his time at the club. And I think prior to this, he was at St Kilda as well, handling the defensive side of things. And, St Kilda probably had one of their best defensive years off the back of him being at the club. And then he was brought across and poached from them. I think, outside of him, as I bring up the coaches now on screen, I think Matty Cruz is probably the only other one that could potentially survive. I mean, what he can provide in a development role for the youngsters, outside of obviously Pitnet. Hudson O'Keefe we've seen come on and show some promising signs. No doubt he's had a fair role in terms of, instilling the ruck craft side of things from his own experience into the game of Hudson, and obviously, helping guide as well Pitnet and TDK, during his time at the club, of course. Going to be at St Kilda as we expect in 2026 and beyond. But, for me, just looking at this list here, for the club having decided to keep on Michael Voss and not pay him out for his final year, says to me that they are quite willing to, part ways with any assistant coach that still has a year remaining on their contract. And I think from what I've heard, Tim Clark himself is probably one who should make way. He's got supposedly a year remaining on his contract, which makes absolutely no sense in my eyes. He's had an opportunity at the club previously, having spent 3 seasons with us from 2015 to 2017 from memory, and he was brought back on board. And to have a year remaining and to be given that bit of faith doesn't quite make sense to me as to why the club's done that. But if you look at the development side of things, Brad Ebert was brought on in 2023, Tom Lonigan as well as a development and talent manager in 2023. And then if you look alongside Voss, his right-hand man, if you want to call him that, in Ash Hansen was brought on in 2023 as well. He was highly rated coming across from the Western Bulldogs, but for me, in my eyes, if he's the one that's pulling the strings tactically, he's been a catastrophic failure. And, needs to be given his marching orders, I think, off the back of that. Albeit, having said that, when he was the forwards coach, we were humming quite well. And I think we're up there in terms of the top 3-4 teams in the league to have the best points for in the seasons that he has been the forwards coach in 23-24. But, for 2025, transitioning into that senior assistant role, I just don't think it's worked. Outside of that, we've got Aaron Greaves as well, who came on board in 2023. Now, his role, if you have a look, is more so to do with development of the coaching group, dynamics, meetings, the training side of things, and, relationships within the coach's box itself. And I just think that, obviously that's something that needs to be improved upon. He's had some time at the club that I think, he just kind of needs to be parted ways with as well, because anything, I think, almost touching the direct assistant coaches and the line coaches, there needs to be a clean sweep across the board. Jordan Russell, in the time that he's been at the club as the forwards coach, we've failed. We've failed pretty badly there in terms of lack of leading patterns and stuff we've spoken about during the season. There's him linking in with Tim Clark as midfield coach with forward 50 entries and whatnot. That's just, both of those guys go hand in hand. And I think in terms of the issues that we've had, they're kind of, they're you can't have one without the other virtually. So I think both of those boys need to move on. Aaron Hamill, obviously given his marching orders as well. And I'd be surprised if Ash Hansen is kept on as well as Greavesy. So I'm expecting a clean sweep across the board here for the line coaches. Development-wise, does Brady get another crack? He's been at the club now since 2023. Lonigan as well. He's been on board 2023. And Jordan Russell 2024. So he's probably the one who's come on board most recently. And Torrin Baker as the development coach has been with us, I think, since 2021 alongside Power. So, we're keeping on board Michael Voss. They've backed him in. They don't want to pay him out for that remaining year. Obviously, they've got a bit of money in the bank, so to speak, to help pay out these coaches if need be. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens from here, but my prediction is that I think there's going to be a clean sweep across the board for all the line coaches, including Ash Hansen as that senior assistant coach, because he should be replaced with someone that has actual senior coaching experience, I think, in a head of coaching type role, just to provide a bit of assistance to Voss in the tactical space as an advisor. So we'll wait and see who that is, but it needs to be someone, I think, that has had senior coaching experience. And we've seen it across the board. Paul Roos at Melbourne. We've seen, of course, Choco Williams at Richmond and Melbourne, and now having parted ways with Melbourne. I wonder if the club's actually reached out to him in an equivalent role. But yeah, we'll wait and see. But what are your thoughts? Let us know down in the comment section below. Who do you think should be kept on board? Who do you expect to be given their marching orders? Is it everyone, or do you reckon someone might be kept on board, such as Matty Cruiser, who I think will be kept? But that's all of that, ladies and gents. We'll wait and see with bated breath as to what other changes are inbound, and I expect to hear some further dominoes to fall from here on out. But until then, ladies and gents, thanks as always for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Go Baggers.
Have you ever heard the MCG